What's up, YouTubers? Tyrano and the voices in my head coming at you from the Duelist Den. And in case you haven't figured it out, today is my budget Dino deck profile. So hit that intro. Before we get into the actual profile, I do want to stress something. I mentioned it in the pre-intro little opening segment there. This is a budget build of the Dino, so you will not be seeing anything like Diagram or any of the True King cards or any of the True Draco cards. This is a budget build. The build I have is not just a buy 3 structure decks and slap one together. I did do a little bit of modification to it to try, make it a little more consistent, things like that. So let's go ahead and get started. First up, we have Baby Ceratosaurus. Now, like all the monsters in this deck, it is dinosaur type. This one is an Earth attribute, level 2 with 500 attack and defense. The effect states if this card is destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, special summon a level 4 lower dinosaur type monster from your deck. So this lets you get all of your lower level monsters that you have in the deck special summon to the field, but it does have to be destroyed by a card effect, which is real easy to do with Overraptor or Ultimate Tyranno. Next up, we have the second baby of the deck, and that is Pteranodon. It's a level 2 Earth with 500 attack and defense. The effect states if this card is destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, special summon a level 4 or higher dinosaur type monster from your deck, but it cannot attack this turn. Now, I don't like the ability that says that it can't attack this turn, but it is letting you get your 5 and higher monsters out like Stegosaurus or Tyranno. Moving on to the level 4s, we of course have Soul Eating Overraptor. Now, Overraptor's effect can only be used when it's normal or special summoned, so it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you summon this to the field, you're getting its effects off, and it lets you either send a dinosaur from your deck to the graveyard or add a dino from your deck to your hand. So it does have some playability and a way to get around cards such as Ash Blossom. Furthermore, if you have a dino on the field that's level 4 or lower, you can destroy it to special summon a dinosaur from your graveyard as well. So it's a great way to get off your Pteranodon and Baby Ceratosaurus effects. Furthermore, it also allows you to search out dinos you can use for Ultimate Tyranno's abilities as well. Miscellaneous is the next card we're going to talk about. This is a must-have for any dino deck. What it does is during either player's main phase, you can discard this card to the graveyard, and during this main phase, your dinosaur type monsters are safe from your opponent's activated effects. Furthermore, you can banish this card from your graveyard along with any number of other dino type monsters, and you can special summon from your deck a dinosaur with a level equal to the number of dinos you banished. Now, ideally, what you're going to want to do with this banishment effect is banish this and one other card to get your Pteranodon or your Baby Ceratosaurus to the field, and then during the end phase, those cards will be destroyed and their effects will activate. Or you can bring them to the field and use this fodder for something like Ultimate Conductor Tyranno or your Tyrannus as well. Moving on, I run 2 copies of Tyrano Infinity. Now, most budget decks run 3 copies of this. I don't think that's a good idea, merely because its attack is equal to the number of banished dinos you have, and you do run a fair amount of banishing effects in this deck. Miscellaneous banishes, you have to banish to summon Ultimate Tyranno, etc, etc. But it's no guarantee that you're going to have banished monsters or that many banished monsters if you draw into this. So I keep it at 2, just so, if I do draw into it while I have a bunch of banished, it's a really strong beater. But I don't want to see it too much just in case I don't have enough banished monsters to boost its attack up to a significant level. Now we've come to the higher level monsters, and the first one I run is 3 copies of Staygo Cyber. This level 6 Dark attribute has 1200 attack and 2400 defense. Now the attack may not be all that impressive, but it's in here for its effect. Now what it does is if it's in your graveyard and your opponent declares an attack, you pay 1000 life points to special summon this card from the graveyard, and you take no battle damage from that attack. So let's say you open a brick hand, but you do manage to have an Overraptor in your hand, but you don't really have any way to, plus off it or anything like that. Well, you summon Overraptor, you send Staygo Cyber to the graveyard, and then when your opponent attacks over your Overraptor, you can use Staygo Cyber's ability, special summon it to the field in defense position. You're not going to take any battle damage from the attack involving Overraptor, and then you have another defender on the field just to kind of save yourself for another turn. And when it leaves the field, it's banished, so it'll give your Tyranno a little bit of a boost once you get that onto the field as well. Next up, I'm running 2 copies of Conductor Tyranno. This is a level 7 fire attribute. It's got 2500 attack, 1400 defense. The effect states you can tribute a dinosaur type monster to have this card gain 500 attack. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, this card gains 300 attack. Now, tributing a monster will not trigger the effects of cards like your baby Ceratosaurus or your Petit Pteranodon, but if you do have like a soul-eating Oviraptor on the field that you can pop off, or a Tyrano Infinity that's really not as powerful as you would like, you would pop it off with Conductor Tyranno to give your Tyrannus a 500 attack. Now, the attack boost does stay with it for as long as it's on the field. So you get this out on the field, and instantly you're going to pop a dinosaur type monster, bring it up to 3000 attack. Then every time it destroys a monster by battle, it's gaining 300 attack and 300 attack, 300 attack. So that attack boost just keeps piling up and piling up and piling up until, you know, your opponent really can't get over it at all. For the final monster of the deck, we run 3 Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. Now, running 3 of it, yeah, you do run the risk of opening multiples in your opening hand, which is essentially a brick hand, and you can't really, do much once that happens. But I feel running 3 is really a better option just because you want to make sure you can draw into it, because this is your main monster. This is your win condition right here. But it's real easy to summon out to the field. All you need to do is banish 2 Dinos from your graveyard. And once per turn during either player's main phase, I love this during either player's main phase. I absolutely adore that. You can destroy a monster either on your field or in your hand to change all face-up attack position monsters on your opponent's field to face-down defense position. Furthermore, this card can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each, and if it attacks a defense position monster, that monster is destroyed with this card's effect and your opponent takes 1000 points of damage. Now, this card is just super freaking broken. It's amazingly broken. I love how broken this card is. And I love that, Dinos didn't really do much at the World Championships. So, I doubt they're going to hit Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. Now, I did say in my Banless prediction video that they might hit it, but after watching that, I really don't think it's going to get a hit now. Starting off the spells, we have 2 copies of Double Summon. You don't really want to run more than 2 copies of Double Summon, because if you don't have multiple monsters in your hand, then it's going to be a dead card, and you can't really use it. It's in here primarily if you open it with Oviraptor. You summon Overraptor, use Overraptor's effect to add one of your babies, like Baby Ceratosaurus or Petit Pteranodon, to your hand. Use Double Summon, bring out whichever one you added to your hand. Then you use Overraptor's effect, pop the baby, sends it to the graveyard, special summon a Dino, and then you get your baby's effect off pretty easily. So it's really a good card to use in combination like that. But running more than 2 of them is not really a good idea because you don't really want to see it too much. The main search of the deck is, of course, Fossil Dig. What this does is it lets you add a level 6 or lower dinosaur type monster from your deck to your hand. Now, if you don't have Overraptor in your hand, but you do open up with a Fossil Dig, ideally what you're going to want to do is search into Overraptor. But if you do have Overraptor, then you're going to want to search for your Miscellaneous. That way you can have a protection effect in your hand ready to go if you need it. Or you could possibly even search into a Baby Ceratosaurus or Petit Pteranodon. It really all depends on what the situation calls for as to what you bring to your hand. The next card I run is 1 copy of Foolish Burial. You might be wondering why I run Foolish Burial. Well, it's pretty simple. If you're going second and your opponent swarms the field with monsters, and you open with Overraptor, Foolish Burial, and Ultimate Conductor Tyranno with any other dinosaur type monster in your hand, then you've essentially got the game. Now, what I mean by that is if you go second and your opponent has 5 monsters on the field, okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to summon Overraptor, pitch a Dino to the graveyard, use Foolish Burial, pitch a Dino to the graveyard, banish both for Ultimate Conductor, use Conductor to destroy the whatever dinosaur type monsters in your hand, preferably one of your level 2, so you can special summon another Dino. And then at that point, you've pretty much got the game won off of that little combo. Moving right along, we have another 1-drop, and that is One Day of Peace. This card's pretty self-explanatory. Both players draw a card, neither player takes any damage to the end of your opponent's next turn. So like I said, pretty self-explanatory. It's a draw engine and a protection engine all rolled into one. Next up, we run 2 copies of Shuffle Reborn. Now, Shuffle Reborn is a really great card. You've seen it all over the place at Nationals this past weekend. But what it does is if you control no monsters, you can special summon a monster from your graveyard, but banish it during the end phase. And if it's in your graveyard, you can banish this card to return a card on your field to the deck, shuffle the deck, and then draw a card. So it gives you a monster to use out on the field for maybe an extra deck summon. Now, I don't utilize an extra deck for this build. I know on the screen there's an extra deck there, but that's just some stuff I was feeling around. The actual build I have in real life does not utilize an extra deck, but it does give you tribute fodder if you can manage to summon your ultimate Tyranno out to the field. And even if you can't, you can still just normal summon your Tyrano Infinity, and then when this gets banished, it'll boost up your Infinity's attack points. Next up, we have 2 copies of Terraforming. Now, a lot of people run triple Terraformings for this deck. I find that that's really unnecessary because 9 times out of 10, you're going to be running 3 field spells only. And if you run 3 Terraformings, then one of them's going to be dead if you draw into a field spell opening hand or draw into a field spell before you get Terraforming. Now, for this build, I run 4 field spells, and I'm still only running 2 Terraformings. I feel you should only run 1 Terraforming for every 2 field spells. So that's why I'm only running 2. But Terraforming, I mean, if you haven't figured it out, it lets you add a field spell card from your deck to your hand, which is really essential for this build. For the last of the normal spells, I run 1 copy of Upstart Goblin. Pretty self-explanatory. Draw a card, your opponent gains 1,000 life points. Enough said. The first of the field spells I run is, of course, Lost World, and I run 3 copies of this card. The effect on this card states that all monsters on the field lose 500 attack and defense except dinosaur-type monsters. Once per turn, if a Dino is normal or special summoned, except during the damage step, you can special summon a Jerry token to your opponent's field in defense position. While your opponent controls a token, they cannot target monsters on the field with card effects except tokens. Once per turn, if a normal monster on the field be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy that many dinosaur-type monsters in your hand or deck instead. So this card allows you to destroy dinos such as Pteranodon or Baby Ceratosaurus to get their effects off. It gives you the ability to get over your opponent's monsters a little bit, and it gives you an out to targeting effects, because every time you summon a dino, your opponent's getting a token. As long as they control a token, they can't target anything but their own tokens for card effects. The last of the spells that I run main deck is the field spell, the Silvori Calcos. Now this card is in here for a couple different reasons. First of all, it gives all my monsters a 500 boost, which is really good. Second of all, once per turn, it can't be destroyed by card effects. So if they have like a Twin Twister or something, they target this, then it's not going to be destroyed unless they activate a second Twin Twister. Third, if I have a boss monster on the field and then a weaker monster on the field, this protects my weaker monster from being targeted for an attack. Because as long as I have 2 or more monsters on the field, and they're both in attack position, my opponent cannot target my lowest attack point monster with an attack. So if I have the big old beat stick Ultimate Conductor Tyranno and then something like a Baby Ceratosaurus out on the field, then it's going to keep my Baby Ceratosaurus safe from an attack. That way I can use it to activate Ultimate Tyranno's ability. For the final card that I run main board, I run 2 copies of Quaking Mirror Force. Now I know 3 would be preferable, but I didn't want to bog the deck down with too many traps. Plus I only have 2 copies of it in real life. But anyway, Quaking Mirror Force, you might say, is a little bit of an expensive card, but it was reprinted in the Dino Smashers structure deck, so you can get it real cheap. But what it does is when an opponent's monster declares an attack, change all attack position monsters your opponent controls to face down defense position, and monsters change to face down defense by this effect cannot change their battle positions. So say your opponent swarms the field with monsters, they attack, you pop the Quaking Mirror Force, well, all their shit's going face down. They can't change it to attack position again, and it buys you the time you need to get your Ultimate Conductor Tyranno out on the field to pull off that combo. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I do want to touch on something. I did not go over the side or extra deck in this video for 2 reasons. First of all, the extra deck issue, like I said earlier in the video, I do not actually run an extra deck for the build that I have in real life. I don't have one set up. I could set one up, but I don't really want to. As for the side deck, the meta is going to be changing here pretty soon. We're getting a new ban list in August, plus the new link mechanics coming out. So I didn't want to do a side deck when, you know, some of the stuff that's relevant right now is either going to get hit on the ban list or become power creeped when the link summoning comes out. But anyway, I hope you guys, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments in the section below, and if you have an idea for a video that you want to see up on my channel, contact me through the Duelist Den Facebook page. That's the best way to get your voice heard for a video you want to see up on the channel. But until next time, this is Harpy189 and the voices in my head, signing off.
Take a shot at me, running side by side. It's a blur as I go by. I can hear you breathing. I can see you rising fire.